Before we begin, I want to share, by the time this talk is over, 2 million plastic bottles would have ended up in landfill. And hardly 10% would be recycled. Given this situation, corporate sustainability is not optional anymore. We're going to deep dive into that today, but it's an urgent necessity. People say that sustainability and climate is always a buzzword. There is nothing real about it. But in reality, coming from Wall Street, I'm a financial person. I'm interested in numbers. I'm interested in profits. But then sustainability is a key pillar for financial growth as well as operational resilience. Sustainability has been a theme in my life for 3 decades, being on Wall Street, going through the global financial crisis, and handling the pandemic digital innovation. You can see it in many different ways. For example, if you're expanding a financial market footprint internationally, your first theme is, how can I reduce expenses? To reduce expenses, you have to find ways in your operations as to where are the waste and how you can eliminate it responsibly. And there you have it. Reducing expenses, reducing waste, eliminating it responsibly, sustainability, and making money out of it. Another example is definitely people. It's not about planet and profits alone if people are not part of the equation. A good business can thrive only when you have a strong workforce, good customer trust, as well as stakeholder value. If you don't provide value to your customers or your investors, your business is not going to grow. But then, people are the ones that are making it happen. So there is this myth about people, planet, profits, where one or the other cannot happen without each other. But then I'm here to say that all three can work together. They need not be mutually exclusive. Taking care of your people and taking care of your planet is going to help you increase your business profits, manage financial risks, and make streamlining the operations possible. In simple terms, what's corporate sustainability? Corporate sustainability means how do you balance profit with conservation, also known as eliminating waste. You could be reducing waste in your buildings. You could be saving energy efficiently in your buildings. You could be following fair labor practices, and that's also sustainability, not about planet, but also about people. But you could be also following trustworthy practices for your investors and stakeholders. What is all this going to do? Of course, save the planet, but more importantly, it's going to attract more investors. It's going to increase investor confidence. It's going to increase your brand recognition among your customers. Long-term sustainability is possible only when you have good customer trust, good investor trust, and you're able to plan for your business for the long term beyond the short-term benefits. Now we are talking about corporate sustainability, but I have a picture of a beach here. Why is it? Because 30 million tons of plastic waste ends up on beaches every year, and that's only in the US, and it's only 10% of what's being globally produced. How does trash end up on beaches? By us. We go to beaches. I'm from New York City. We thrive for the 2-week beach time that we get every year. But also, it can wash up from oceans into our beaches. So someone else may be polluting it in some other part of the world, and that trash could end up on your beaches. Now, regardless of how it ends up on your beach, this is affecting your food quality, your water quality, your fishing industry, but it also impacts the health and well-being of your people, your neighborhood, your family, and your communities. So how do we tackle this? Of course, number one is stop putting trash on beaches, stop polluting with plastic waste, but what's practically feasible? So I give an example of TerraCycle, a startup. And again, I quote a lot of startups and businesses in this presentation as a disclaimer. I don't represent any of them. I'm just watching them grow and do innovative things in the climate space, and I want to share with you as an example to showcase that climate innovation is possible. TerraCycle was spun out of the Princeton University lab. They were able to find a solution that took the plastic waste from beaches, and they were able to create shampoo bottles. Now, everyone uses shampoo bottles, so they partnered with P&G, and they were able to distribute it worldwide. So what happens with plastic waste on beach that's impacting our family and communities ends up as a shampoo bottle that we can use and reuse and repeatedly continue to follow the process. So that's one example. And even with this example, we have only 20% of US businesses integrating climate actions into their operations today. Why do we have such a less number incorporating climate actions into operations when we know it's financially beneficial? So let's take a step back as to what happened back in, let's say, 100 years back. We were transitioning from coal to gasoline. It's the same situation. Coal was very cheap, but it was also polluting the air. It was causing a lot of health issues for your families and your neighborhoods. So gasoline was a better solution at that time. It was very expensive, like today, how green products are expensive. So the government pitched in. They gave a lot of incentives, tax benefits. They made the solutions to be widely available across the US. So the cost of gasoline came down. It became inexpensive to use gasoline, so people stopped using coal, and we transitioned out of it. We are in a similar transition now, where we have to transition from gasoline into clean energy. So what are the challenges? Even when we know it is possible, there are innovations available, but businesses are unable to adopt. Number one challenge is, even without incorporating climate into their picture, already the operations, the supply chain, the logistics are so complex for businesses to handle that adding climate as a factor is a big issue for them to run their day-to-day operations. The second issue is skill set gaps. If someone wants to start today, where do they start? How do they start? Are they going to do everything overnight, or where can they start small? That's a challenge. So we continue to wait. And then even after that, if we start, there could be new business scenarios that will pop up that will have a negative impact or may slow down your climate initiatives. Of all this, the biggest factor or the issue that we are unable to make this transition today is green premium. Green premium is a term where a sustainable product, when it replaces your current product, could be 10 to 100 times more expensive in today's terms, like how gasoline transition happened with coal. Because this green premium is 10 to 100 times more expensive, businesses are hesitant to take this upon. Sometimes if you are transitioning your, let's say, a gas-powered truck to a hybrid, it would be less than 10 times expensive. But if you are a business owner with a lot of manufacturing plants, as well as physical buildings globally positioned, and you're trying to green them all, then you may be looking at 100 times more expensive costs that you have to handle. And that's one of the challenges where businesses are unable to make this transition without the support from government and tax breaks and the solution being available widely. So how can we get started? We have to start somewhere, take that tiny step. So I have a 4-part framework to just get started. It's for beginners who can get on this sustainable transition journey and then see where it goes and improve upon as they go along. First is climate risk. All of us manage risk in our everyday lives, in everything, personal lives, professional lives, financial lives, everything. Climate risk is just another component. If a climate disaster strikes, how does your well-being be affected? How is your business affected? How is your profit impacted? You just assess the climate risk that's local and specific to you and your business. Then you look into climate metrics. Climate metrics is a fancy term to say just measure everything. So you know how much electricity you consume. You know how much water you consume. Similarly, you measure climate disaster that can affect your business and then come up with ways to either mitigate or adapt. So then you can show some improvements in your operations and profits. Third, climate technologies. We don't have to do it alone. There are a lot of climate technologies, startups, innovation that's happening all over the world. We just have to adopt them, give them a chance, make them scalable, invest in them, trust them that they have done their research, and use them to scale and accelerate our own transition. Last is reporting. No one likes reporting, especially if you're a business owner. You are anyway doing your income and expenses. You're doing profit loss statements and balance sheet statements. Add climate component to it. Just add 1 or 2 data elements to your next financial report, and we'll talk about it a little bit now. And then you can be on your journey. So let's get into step 1. Now, understanding climate risk, not everyone may face the same type of risks, but as an example, what is the financial loss or operational impact for your business, for your livelihood, when a climate disaster happens? You need to understand that specific to your business, your geography, your livelihood, your lifestyle, your family and community. Now, the climate risk could be 2 types. One is, it could be a physical risk, an extreme weather event. It could be a hurricane, flood, drought, whatever, you name it. But it could also be transitional risks. Transitional risks are indirect risks, could be geopolitical, if there is no government support, or if there is no cooperation between countries. Or it could be also change in market conditions, or adaptation of new technologies that is increasing delay in expanding it to other markets. Whatever the type of risk is, first understand where you stand and what affects you today for your business and for your profit. Now, as an example, we just heard about the LA wildfires. A lot of life lost, even though the square foot or the acre impacted was less, only for the reason that there were a lot of human beings, people living in that dense location. But globally, floods, droughts, hurricanes, wildfires, every year they cost $210 billion in damages. And these damages are not just dollar amounts. These are lives of people lost, homes of people lost, businesses lost, communities displaced. And this is going to only increase, repeat, year over year, not just in US, but globally. Now, we know this happens. When something like this happens, what's the next step? Who pays for it? Someone has to pay for it, right? The first stop is insurance companies. If you are savvy enough that you have insured yourself, your business, your community, your building, your neighborhood, of course, they would do all the checks. They may, luckily, give you the funds. But we've also heard in news that many insurance companies are declining coverage in states like Florida and California because of recurrent hurricanes and wildfires. So then where do you go next? What's your plan B? You have to rely on government, FEMA, or organizations like Red Cross to support you to get through this. Let's assume, step 2, you have got some government aid or Red Cross or some support. If your problem is fixable, if your location can be rebuilt, if your buildings and communities can be regenerated, then that money can be used to rebuild your community. But what happens when that is not an option? So you have the fund, you want to rebuild your community, your business, and your home, but you're unable to do so because it's going to be repeatedly occurring, and no one wants to continue to live there anymore, and you're being displaced. In that situation, green premium will be a fraction of percentage of money you would have spent proactively to mitigate this challenge than trying to address it after you are getting displaced or relocated. So as business owners, we assess financial risk every single day for our business. All I ask is add climate risk as one additional component to it starting today or next month and see how it goes. Now, we keep talking about measuring risk, and metrics. What are they? So climate risk metrics are nothing but they are data-driven tools. They are data like how you measure electricity as an example. If you are able to convert your electric leak today with a renewable energy source, you are able to save money on electricity spent, but you're also able to showcase profits on your business because you have saved some money on the operating expenses of your business. It's as simple as data that you already have that you can use to project and showcase whether there is an upside or downside to your transition. Now, what's the advantage of doing this? When you proactively measure, you know ways to mitigate before the disaster happens. But what if you are not able to mitigate before the disaster happens? At least you'll have a plan B or C as to what to do next to adapt or live with it or find alternate options. But then not doing that and trying to run a business with financial risk, everything accommodated without a climate factor is not an accurate forecast, is what I'd like to highlight. Now let's talk about avocados. I know we are in Texas. I've been here for a few days, and everywhere I go, we see guac. But then last summer of 2024, I had a challenge related to avocados. So my daughter was visiting me, and she loves avocados. But the problem was, we had a shortage in New York City. I couldn't find it anywhere near my stores. The reason being, avocados require a lot of water to grow healthily, and California is one of our biggest suppliers, apart from importing from Mexico and other countries. And because of wildfires and drought, there was a shortage of avocados all over the city. I was not the only one impacted, or I had to deal with my daughter, but rather, there were so many agriculture farms, so many restaurant chains that were impacted due to this. Like the egg shortage we have today, businesses had to put up signs to say, okay, no guac on your Chipotle dish, or something of that sort. So what happened there? Because we were unable to forecast the risk posed by drought in the produce of avocados, the farmers were not able to plan ahead as to what to do if there is a shortage, and the restaurants were not able to plan ahead as to what to do if there is a shortage, the changes to their menu and other things. So this is where tracking climate risk and metrics come into picture. Now, how do we track and mitigate? Like I said, data-driven tools. You can use them to either proactively mitigate or learn how to adapt or find alternate ways. But the one thing I want to also state is it's not about just protecting the planet. It's also stabilizing the economy. The restaurants that lost business because of the avocado shortage would really understand this. So I want to share, it's not about protecting the planet and the people, but it's also good business. Let's take an example. So I'm from New York City, like I said earlier. We have only 2 months of summer, real summer, every year. But even within that, those 2 months are so hot, it's usually 5 degrees warmer outside the city boundaries than inside the city. It is because of the concrete from the high-rise buildings. There are so many high-rise buildings with a lot of concrete and a lot of glass that they reflect and trap heat within the city. So it gets really hot to walk on the streets in New York City, especially in summer. Now, what did we do? The last few years, what we have done is to combat urban heat. I mean, I'm sure many of you have heard of Times Square and how much traffic it can get on a day-to-day basis. Because of a lot of vehicles in that high traffic zone, there is a lot of heat being generated, and then pedestrians were avoiding New York City and walking around in the city. We made few streets pedestrian-only zones. We planted trees on both sides of the streets, and we made them business-friendly. How? because more people are walking on the road, there is less heat, there is cool air, and more foot traffic is good for business. People are walking into your store and you're doing business. So that's one example of how you can do simple changes to get through this. Now this is another example, block power. And again, I'm not representing block power, but this is a startup that has done a lot of good things in New York City as well. Apart from greening the streets, they evaluate each and every building. They look into your heating and cooling systems. They find out any leaks and find out opportunities to bring renewable energy or a solar panel or alternate energy systems that can eliminate energy waste in your building. They also provide financial support during your transition, so you don't have to deal with that green premium that's going to be expensive in that transition. So what happens when you bring in new heat and AC systems, bring in solar panels and renewable energy? You're not only greening the building, you're getting financial support. On top of it, on a daily basis, the building owners are earning more incentives in terms of reducing electricity usage, reducing waste from running old, outdated heat and AC systems. But more importantly, the tenants are happier because the air is healthier and it's a good place to live. Now moving into our third pillar. So we briefly touched upon what's climate risk, what are climate metrics, but how can climate technologies help us? We have a lot of good innovation in renewable energy, clean energy. We do have smart power grids. Battery storage is very important. We also have a lot of innovation in regenerative agriculture technology. But even with all of this, like Laurie mentioned ahead of me, funding is the problem. Funding and innovation, especially a capital-intensive climate innovation, is a bet you have to take on the founder and the startup for it to be easily available across for the masses so that it can come down in price like gasoline, so we don't have to pay green premium anymore. Now, just to close the loop on that avocado problem that I had last summer, regenerative agriculture technology is a great thing. So we can create seeds that can produce regular yields in low water zones, which means there's not going to be avocado shortage if California has a drought or a wildfire. You can still adapt. So this is one step further than mitigating, where you are adapting to the changes that we are encountering. This is another example of a startup called Katie, which is doing great things in the agriculture space. They are able to help farmers do high crop yields in low water zones, but more importantly, year over year, the soil is regenerated and enriched, which means you get better yield next year and the following year. So the cycle continues, where there are low carbon emissions, but better yields in low drought zones for the farmers. And yeah, they won the Earthshot Prize from Prince William's Foundation in 2022 for this breakthrough technology and helping a lot of farmers get through this hurdle. And this is my last example. We spoke about solar panels, installing them. Let us say you are someone, you've already installed the solar panel. Now what do? You wait for the sunlight. You need to know when you'll get better sunlight, how long the sunlight will be available, how much you can generate from that, and how you can reuse it further than that. So the solar panel users typically did not have this kind of data. They always had a fossil fuel or a gasoline backup generator, so that whenever there is not enough sunlight, they immediately switch to that. So MIT came up with the AI technology where they are able to accurately predict, I mean, not 100%, but close to 90% accuracy, how much sunlight you'll get in a day, how long it will be available, what's the intensity of the sunlight. So the solar panel users or owners can plan when to generate that power. Now, once you generate that power, you use any remaining for your use at night. But if you have extra, you can always sell it to your neighbor and make some money out of it. So you're doing good for the planet, you're saving carbon emissions, you're also making money and generating solar energy. So it's a win-win-win by using technology. Now lastly, reporting. Like I said, reporting is as simple as a financial reporting. You do income, you do expenses, you create balance sheets, you create profit-loss statements. Similarly, you have an operating expenses section. You say, okay, by installing a solar panel, I was able to save 20% on electricity usage this month, and that saved me 40% on operating expenses, so I've generated profits. So it's as simple as that, and then it's only going to give more transparency to your investors and customers, and it's only going to increase trust with your talent and workforce. So this is the example I was talking about. So reducing operating expenses, thereby increasing profit margins by just saving on electricity costs. And it could be as simple as starting with one solar panel. We started by talking about a tiny step. Like I said, you don't have to boil the ocean. You don't have to think for years and strategize. You could start small. And always, while you are trying to take care of the planet, put people in the equation. Because sustainability should definitely account for planet and people. We've all spoken about that. But it is also important to generate profits so that we can continue to scale these innovations and make it available in a less expensive way to everyone. And it becomes as simple as using gasoline today. So if you're thinking about where to start with your operations, I'd say maybe take a look at how you can reduce food waste or water waste in your buildings, how you can reduce electricity usage in your buildings, or even try to use hybrids instead of gasoline. You may not transition overnight if you want to. But I strongly believe that people, planet, and profits need not be mutually exclusive, and they hang together, and any business can start their sustainable transformation any day today. Thank you.